2024, a few months after Ventura filed her sex trafficking lawsuit. It traumatized me, Clark said of the complaint. During that meeting, Clark said that she and Combs' lawyers discussed what took place in December 2011 and that there were talks about Clark joining Combs to work as his chief of staff and Combs entering rehab. Clark never heard from his attorneys again after the meeting, she said. All right. It was as recently as April 2024 that former employee Capricorn Clark wanted to work for Shaun Diddy Combs, who she has accused of abusing her, kidnapping her, and physically tormenting her for years. Yeah. Clark conceded on cross-examination that during a meeting last year with Combs' lawyers, Mark Agnifilio and Tenny Geragos, she brought up wanting to become Combs' chief of staff. Clark also had a lawyer present at the time. Federal investigators have already begun investigating Combs and had executed search warrants of his 2 homes. Clark testified that she was aware of those developments. That discussion of a new job possibly happened about 6 years after Clark left Combs' employment. Clark's last worked for him in 2018, doing a job that involved assisting Ventura in her music career. Clark also testified earlier that Combs threatened to unalive her multiple times and ruin her life if she didn't comply with his various demands. She also said that she was traumatized from watching Combs repeatedly kick a weeping Ventura into a fit of fury over his relationship with Kid Cudi. All right. During the start of the Capricorn Clark cross-examination, Shaun Combs was leaning intently over the defense table. His hands clasped on top of it. The Clark is being questioned. Under Combs, Clark's had various positions. She was hired as a personal assistant in 2004 before eventually becoming a global brand director. Anything involving his name and likeness fell under her purview, Clark said. Before they worked together, the pair had a very platonic friendship after meeting through a mutual friend in 2002, according to Clark. Mark Agnifilio, Combs' lead counsel, questioned Clark about the text that she had sent Combs in which she had told him that she had the biggest crush on him. Clark about text she had. Okay. Clark wondered if they had misused all of that dope chemistry in the message. Agnifilio briefly questioned Clark about that earlier period, prompting her to say she remembered those days fondly. He is now asking her about the first year she worked for Combs. Right, we're getting there, people. We're getting there. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilio queried Capricorn Clark about the nature of the work she did for Combs, as well as their relationship. I've not forgotten about these ladies. We're almost there. Clark began to work as a personal assistant and then personal liaison. She testified she was a sounding board for Combs' Vote or Die campaign in 2004. Clark was fired for 3 to 4 weeks that year, she said, after an incident in which a diamond jewelry entrusted to her had gone missing. Clark said that she had held on. Okay. Clark said she was held on a dilapidated floor. We've heard about this. 5 days in the lie detector. Wait. She was held for how long? Clark said that she was held on a dilapidated floor in a bad boy building all day for 5 days.
Yeah.
So all day for 5 days means that like she got home for dinner, right? Must be. All day for 5 days to answer questions while hooked up to a lie detector machine. Agnifilio asked her if he ever went to human resources bad boy by the incident. She did not. Right. We're going to need to we're going to need to pull that line of question. We're going to have to go into that because that is worded really odd. As the court was breaking for lunch, the prosecution said it felt that it was ahead of schedule in the presenting its case against Shaun Diddy Combs. The government had initially asked for 6 weeks, but it's on pace to finish in 5. A light cheer echoed through the press room. Judge Subramanian has previously said he's aiming to have the case wrapped up by the 4th of July holiday weekend. Sean Diddy Combs, no one cares. And okay, this is this chick. She done the interview on the Cold Underbelly, I think. Is that right? I think I remember watching it. Yes, there you go. Go and check that out. It's right there. Brilliant interview. Mad. Okay. Oh, we're there. We did it. Okay, I think we've got one more update. Okay, Clark questioned about decision to leave Combs in 2006. While cross-examination of Capricorn Clark's defense attorney, Mark Attwood, picked up a line of questioning, he started before the lunch recess. During, he asked Clark about her decision to stop working for Combs in 2006. On Tuesday morning, Clark said she left her job at Combs' assistant that year after she got violent with her in Miami home. She got a job at Jive Zomba working at projects for R. Kelly and... Okay. It's not a good one. Agnifila asked if Combs was supportive of her leaving, but Clark was non-committal. I didn't remember him giving me support of the move, she said. She also seemed to push back on the suggestion that Combs helped her get the job. Agnifilio then asked about the pay bump she got when she was working at Jive and Zomba. Clark seemed to think that Agnifilio was implying that she left her job with Combs to get more money, which she pushed back on. That's not why I was there, Clark said, shaking her head vigorously. All right, let me bring the other two ladies in. Right, first of all, thank you for being patient and going through all of that. Second of all, like and share. How are we all doing in the side chat? How are we all doing on Discord? So first of all, Pam, Stacey, Diane, can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, nice one. Okay, so Pam got here first, right? So I'm gonna just go through you. We're gonna start with Pam. So Pam, how are you today? And I imagine there's been a lot going on with this case that we all want to talk about. So I when I looked at it this morning, there was a lot of names. Okay, we've got the frickin' Obama Swedgers, we've got Usher, we've got the chick from the frickin' Hunger Games, we've got OPRAH.
Huh?
Where
I mean, that's,
did you get that information from?
I don't know. It was all in the newspapers.
Was it?
Yeah.
What newspaper?
I'll tell you in a second. Here you go. Jennifer Lawrence and OPRAH dragged into the Diddy trial 2 hours ago.
Oh,
Boom.
did you say 2 years ago?
2 years ago. No, not 2 years ago.
No, what did you say? Sorry, I missed it.
I think
2 hours ago.
I think 2 hours ago.
2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That must have been when I was modding for you, so I wasn't able to see the updates.
And I haven't
Listen
seen
to it. It's your fault, Ron.
So
It's
I
your
didn't
fault
hear
for
that
working your
thing.
mods too hard. That's
Sorry.
what it is.
What were you saying there?
Saying
I
you're
don't
working
know.
your mods too hard, mate. That's
Yeah, no,
what it
no.
is.
I heard you, bro. I heard you. It was.
Was it me that you're on about, Ron?
Very possibly.
I said, yeah, sorry, I've been a bit out of it this last couple of hours. I had an urgent appointment at the doctor's and was meant to be calling an ambulance to go to the hospital that I haven't done. So anything from
Well,
3 o'clock, I've not really, 2 o'clock, sorry, I've not really seen much of as yet.
Well, I hope you're okay, and maybe go and call that ambulance.
No, I'm just going to try and hopefully ride it out. If it doesn't settle down, then I'll call the ambulance.
Oh, all right. Well, okay. Well, I hope you're okay. Definitely call the ambulance. So, yeah, we've got many other celebrities like Michael B. Jordan, Barack Obama, Britney Spears have indeed come up in testimony. We will read through it all. But
there's lots of names from the other day as well, and earlier on this morning I saw a lot of other names with regarding all the finance side of things with Diddy and his godfather Ron Burkle, who's also godfather to all his kids. That's the sugar daddy, basically.
All right.
So
okay.
Lots and lots of information.
Well, okay. Well, Shai, I don't really need to ask you how you are. You sound like you're doing great. You sound great, but you know, I hope you're okay. I really do. Okay, so Stace, how are you doing today, and what has pinged up on your radar over the last couple of days?
I'm doing good. I've been keeping up with generally what has been getting talked about over the weekend and what's been transpiring so far in court today. And you know, last week when we heard the testimony of Dr. Hughes and Kid Cudi, it obviously struck a nerve with Diddy because his defense team tried to get their testimonies basically removed.
Yeah, there was an urgent filings filed, wasn't it, to have them both removed?
Yeah. And, you know, that just goes to show that they're very scared of the impact that both of them are having on the case. And I think we all can agree that their testimonies last week were very impactful. You know, to hear the psychological effects, not only did that help the jurors understand Cassie, but that is also preparing the jurors on how to understand future victims that are going to be coming to the stand, you know, in later part of the case. So it was a great cushion to time it in between. So this way the jury, you know, they don't keep saying, oh, why did all these people stick around, you know? And as far as Kid Cudi, I mean, you know, that arson charge is going to be a big part of the case because, you know, it's one of the allegations for the RICO that is outside of the trafficking situation, you know. So, you know, it's going to be very telling to see when the LAPD, LAFD come to the stand and what they testify as far as that whole situation with the arson with Cudi. You know, they did bring up DNA that was found on the glass in the car. And I'm waiting for that to be brought up during the LAFD investigation, I guess, or the science, the DNA doctor, whoever did the DNA test results for the investigators.
Okay.
Because I think what's going to happen is we're going to see that the DNA is a match to Capricorn Clark. And I think she's, you know, I think.
Sorry, Stacey, I was just going to ask you a tiny little question. Did they actually say that it was? Because I thought they just said it was a female.
They did say it was
of a female, but they didn't actually say it was.
They did say female, but they haven't had the police department or the fire department on stand yet. I would think if the feds have been as strategic as they've been, that those are going to be the next testimonies that we see. Right now, they're doing cross-exam on Capricorn Clark. So hopefully, maybe we'll see another person testify. They should be finishing up with her soon. I know they just got back from lunch, but they started the cross right before going to lunch. So we'll see what happens.
Well, 10 minutes ago, Cassie's been rushed to hospital. So I imagine.
Just
for the baby.
Yeah, I think.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yay!
I think baby time. So all the good vibes to Cassie and her baby for sure.
Sorry, I'm doing it again, aren't I?
No, you're all right, Pam. Don't worry, you're good.
Because I was just about to say, didn't he say that if she ends up having her baby, and she won't be able to come back, that they could, like, it would be a mistrial? I think they were referring to the fact that if she was to have the baby in between, and then they need her back, and she won't be able to go on the stand.
Well, I imagine
do you know what I mean?
I imagine it
and
will
they
depend.
were. I think what it is Diddy is trying to get a mistrial, so I think they're just trying to like figure out what's going to be the.
Can I just, Ron, can you see that picture there? Sorry, I just want to point this out. Sorry to interrupt there, Pam. See Diddy standing there in that tux with black bow tie.
Yep.
That is not what we call a Duchenne smile. That's more of a smirk. That's a Duchenne smile. When we smile, should reach the corner of the eyes and cause crow feet.
Okay.
And that's not what we're seeing. And there's nothing. That's just a fake smile. But that's more of a sneer.
Okay.
He either doesn't like the photographer, but that's what a fake smile looks like. It's just nothing around the eyes.
All right.
Sorry, just thought I'd
sorry.
point that out.
So
what I was just trying to say is that he's just trying. I think they're just kind of clutching at straws and they're trying to get a mistrial. For example, they didn't want, like you already said, they didn't want, even though they'd already testified, they wanted it thrown out. The Kid Cudi interview that they had with him, and then also who else was there? There was something
Dr.
else.
Hughes.
Yes. Because the thing is, because they did find that, okay, then they're kind of so far on a kind of like a losing streak as such. And that was, and for example, if they were to be taken out, then they're obviously going to think that they've got more chance of like him, getting off or,
Their
or
defense,
yeah.
so far the defense team,
Yeah.
their only defense that they have is to just try to remove anything that has some substance. That is a repeated thing that they're trying to do with this trial. Because they know that everything that they're trying to remove is very impactful and heavy on getting this conviction. And, they're trying to set this up for a mistrial, and the feds are being very strategic to try to prevent a mistrial. And so is the judge, by the way. The judge sees exactly what they're doing. And, the judge has given some leniency today when the defense team brought up some issues about things. He did side with them on a few things, because I know the judge is saying, hey, even though I know that these people are a bunch of whats, and I see what they're trying to do, I also want to prevent them from saying that the judge, was unfair and, didn't do his due diligence and so forth. So he's trying to cover his butt as well. And I don't think, considering the charges and the amount of evidence and the fact that the judge is being very careful with how things are run in that courtroom, I don't foresee them being successful in trying to get a mistrial. To be honest with you, with people that are in the courtroom and people that have been talking with insiders, and with knowing that, the feds have given up witness number 2 that disappeared, it just goes to show that the feds have so much evidence and so much in their back pocket that they don't, even if the defense gets some things thrown out and, removed from the trial, they still have more. There's still plenty more that, they can whip out and use against him to get the conviction. And we haven't even gone over the digital evidence. Right now, we're seeing all witness testimony, victim testimony, the testimony of the people that conducted the raids. You can't deny the digital evidence on top of, the jury has already seen a lot of pictures of things. I don't see them being successful at this mistrial attempt. And because they already showed their cards, that gives the prosecutors and the judge the ability to handle them with kid gloves and basically be 2 steps ahead of them, which I'm sure they were already knowing that because of Diddy's connections, his money, the amount of defense that he has on his team, they know that the only way for him to try to get out of this is to try to call for a mistrial. Because everything is just, it's black and white. I think a lot of people who were saying, where's the RICO? Where's the RICO? Well, between last week and what we're starting to see today, it's being laid out.
Yeah.
We're now able to see things more clearly, and it's
Yep.
you know, it's almost
Yeah.
blinding, you know, and very obvious what's going on here. There's been numerous
Yeah.
people brought up within the Combs enterprises, and those people are going to be testifying to save their own butts, you know, or else they're going to have their own issues legally to address, you know.
And also, I think what they're doing, what they were doing today with the Kid Cudi and Capricorn's testimony, I think they're just like basically showing that it isn't just that he was controlling or he treated Cassie wrong. He was doing it to everybody else in his way. He was still having control over, like, I mean, that poor assistant, I don't know how she coped, because even though they pointed out, they did actually point out that she had said that she had a bit of a crush on him. But obviously, once she started working with him, she realized, you know what, this guy is a completely different person. It isn't just smiles and having photos and everything. And he was basically controlling every single thing. With regards to she was working like so many hours, like from about 9 o'clock every day till about 4 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, and basically she had to go everywhere with him, even though he still had all the people around, like his bodyguards or all the people around him, but he still kind of like kept Capricorn there with him a lot. And it just goes to show she saw a lot of things. And I think what they're trying to emphasize is he basically, people were like working for him, but they were living in fear. And I find that so
100%.
strange. Like even the you know, the what do you call them, bodyguards, or you know, that he had, even though they would most probably even think like what he's saying, the way he's talking to people, the way he treats them. I mean, the way he treated Capricorn, it was just crazy, and to the point, like you say, that he threatened her a lot. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, why didn't she just walk away?" But I think she was scared, and also when you work for Diddy, you get to know a lot of things that, you know, he expects you to like not share that information, obviously. But she was like it was almost like on the job training. She was just like having to do everything from picking up. I think they went somewhere where she picked up some money and brought it over. I think it was in, you know what, I've written all this down, but they're all in different bits of paper.
That's okay. I could talk
Oh,
to it.
You know, I'm referring to when they went and she picked up some money and brought that over.
Yeah, I could talk.
To Diddy,
Yeah. So what happened with that is there was €100,000
that's it,
in a bag, and that was acquired for Diddy appearing at different places while he was overseas. You know, he also had her go fetch him some substances, and she basically had a Spanish bodyguard go get it for her, or find where to get it. There was another mention of prescription drugs being in her name for Diddy. Now, we heard this with the assistant that testified last week. So you see a common pattern of him having prescription drugs in other people's names. You see a pattern of, you know, money crossing the border. There's a pattern of threats. Now, Capricorn Clark, you know, Ron went pretty quick to try to catch everyone up to speed, but essentially, you know, early on, that, remember when we spoke about like that whole missing jewelry situation? Well, Capricorn Clark was one of the people that was accused of stealing jewelry, and she was held hostage essentially for 5 days to do a lie detector test.
Yeah. I mean,
But
let's
that
just,
also is a running theme with Diddy.
Yeah.
He does
hang
that
on a
repeatedly
second.
with
Hang on
a
a second.
lot of people.
Hang on a second, Pam.
Yeah.
Ladies, can you all hear this noise? Can you
I heard like a scratch sound then.
can you hear a beeping sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so just
Yeah.
just so you know, when you hear that, that means wrap
Yeah.
up your sentence. And
Right.
I need to interject when you get it'll mainly just be to say to tell people to like and subscribe. But let's focus just now on that incident, right? Let's focus on you work for someone, you get driven to a dilapidated 6th floor of a building that then later became the offices for Bad Boy. If that doesn't reek of sketchiness to begin with, but 5 days, I mean, she says she's held all day. Does that mean she's there all day, gets taken home, security guard outside her house?
She wasn't. She was there all.
She was
there all day, but they did say that she was taken home and then picked up in the morning and then taken home in the evening. So she wasn't there for the
8 hours.
full.
So
but she wasn't there for the full.
So technically, if her contract says that she's to work a minimum of 40 hours a week, then arguably that was a undisclosed business trip that she was on within of her contractual hours, right?
Yeah. But a lot of the sorry, Ron.
No. But could we not?
I was
could they
just
not
going to say
argue
a
that?
lot of. Sorry.
No. I'm saying, could we not argue that if they'd kept it within her contracted hours, that this could have been seen as some really horrible
work day? Work week.
Well, internal work investigation. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. A lot of their assistants all stated that they were given ridiculously long week time. They were contracted for say 30, 40 hours, but they were doing more like 80 to 100 a week.
And she was another one that testified to that she was only able to get maybe 2 to 4 hours of sleep every day because she was expected to be there all day and all night. And in fact, Diddy said to her, if you work for me, you cannot have a life. This is your life. And refused to let her leave the house until he said she was able to leave, or the office, wherever they were at. She also approached HR about overtime that she had worked, and they calculated that she was owed $80,000 in overtime pay. And when they approached Diddy about it, he ripped up the paper and said, screw you, basically. So there you go with the forced labor.
Behavior.
But that's forced labor too,
And the whole trying to get away thing, when she wanted out, everything that she feared could happen happened, in that she ended up making a complaint and said she was going to take legal action, got a payout from the music company. They got her to sign an NDA and everything else. And then once she'd gone, they then let out this whole story that she'd stolen the jewelry and money and everything else, and that she couldn't fight back with that because she'd signed an NDA, and if she had, she would then have got sued, and that effectively damaged her opportunities for working going forward. She's never been a PA for anybody since. She's had other jobs, but she's never been able to get back into that position because of the stain of Diddy and his team saying that she'd stolen things when she hadn't.
Right. Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
She'd been blackballed.
Yeah, 100%.
So she didn't get a job anywhere. She wasn't gonna, and that's one of the reasons why she ended up going back to him anyway, because that was the only way she could work because no one would give her a job. So a lot of people could turn around and say, "Well, why are you going back? If Diddy's like treated you like crap and and he's threatened you, and he said this, you know, basically, and you've worked all the hours God sends, and he, you know, and he's still like treating you like rubbish. People could easily say, well, just get up and go. But it wasn't that easy for her because
No.
when she did leave, it was a case of she couldn't get a job. And he has the power to blackball anybody, whether it's like somebody working for him or whether it's somebody in the music industry. He has that much control. So I think, I mean, the poor, you know, even when she was asked like how many times did he threaten you, she basically said he threatened her about, you know,
50
times, you know,
in a matter of
and
like 10
so,
months.
yeah. So could you imagine how she was, you know, like she must have been like, I mean, to be able to work with him, she must have, every day must have been a nightmare for her, to be fair. And she lived in fear, and she was doing all this stuff that was legal when it came to getting money for him, you know, shopping around, getting prescription medication in her name. Do you know what I mean? I think he did, if I remember rightly, have prescription medication in his own name, didn't he, Stacey?
Yeah.
You think? Can you remember?
He
Yeah.
used an alias as well as his name, as well as former
Oh, yes,
assistants'
Black.
names, and
He
he
literally
used
all the tricks in the book.
anything.
All the tricks in
Yeah.
the book, Stacey.
Yeah.
All the
Yep.
tricks in the book. 100%. It's
And
I mean, every assistant had the same story. Sorry, please like and subscribe, everyone, to the channel.
my guy.
Um,
My guy.
Go on,
There's no
Shaun.
point in me being here. On you go, girls. Crack on.
Sorry, I just got that in
Stop.
before I went on to the next point. My brain's scrambled at the minute with not being 100%, but his previous bodyguard wanted out and he couldn't get out, and he ended up was one of the only ones that got out fairly easily, given how it normally goes with Diddy, in that his dad got cancer. So he was able to use that as the excuse of why he had to leave, because he tried a couple of times before and it wasn't happening. And that's when he then hired the English male assistant, the one that basically bigged him up on his testimony. I can't think of his name right now.
the one that was on last week.
Yeah.
That was, hold on one sec.
Is it George somebody?
George Kaplan.
That's it, yeah. He was the one that was like, he was like a god or something.
Yeah.
He was the only one that kind of, he said he had a lot of stuff to do that he didn't want to do, but he's the only one really that hasn't come out with horror stories as such.
Well,
but the others have had a very difficult time, and it's just a pattern across the board, be it financially, physically, emotionally, how he is with everybody.
yeah, he used threats in whatever way that he could get away with everybody. You know, you see a pattern of him threatening people's lives, threatening people's jobs, you know, threatening their families, you know, anything that he could do to get his way, you know, and this is all like, you know, systemically part of the RICO, you know, is how he's using everyone to run his enterprise and, you know, using his enterprise name to do illegal things. You know, he had people doing a lot of the dirty work as far as the illegal activities, right?
Yeah,
But he was threatening, right? Other people were doing this under force and coercion.
Yeah,
They weren't doing it because they wanted to do it, because they were the ones who were benefiting from it. They were doing it because they were threatened.
yeah,
You
they
know?
had no choice.
And also, a lot of the money that he's made, a lot of the deals that he did, they were all through this Ron Burkle. He gave $100 million for him to push forward his clothing line and everything.
Yep.
There's been over 30 people that have helped financially with him to get going, but every time that he's done any big deal, it's always been through Ron Burkle, and it's been Ron Burkle's money that he has used, but it's never been said that it was him. It's always been that it was Diddy, and it hasn't been. And that Ron Burkle is known as the billionaire playboy. He's been at all the parties, all the venues, hosted and paid for a lot of them as well. And he's also connected with Epstein, Clinton, all of the big names that are all connected. And that Ron Burkle's got his fingers in that many pies that he's basically got control over everything. He's an absolute mega financier. And it's been a lot of him that's helped facilitate where things have gone, which also brings in all the financial side of the RICO, which is why they're having a lot of different names and all these threads of where money's going separately. It's
well, we haven't gotten that far yet, but I think we're going to hear a lot of that when Christina Karam testifies, because I just can't see them not bringing her on the stand.
Thank you for that, Ron. I didn't know what that meant.
All right, ladies,
they brought her up.
We've got a couple of updates, ladies. Sorry to interject. Capricorn has been an interesting and very animated presence on the stand, a member of Shaun Combs' inner circle for years. Clark appeared nervous and emotional at times. She choked up, recalling several violent incidents involving Combs, and again, when describing how much she loved her work as a creative director, at times, Clark appeared to shrink in her chair. But Clark also seemed self-assured under the cross-examination, pushing back on questions from Combs' attorney. She was especially confident when talking about her work and recalling various meetings and personalities. Clark's nails were also notable. The former creative director occasionally talked with her hands, and she was sporting long, dark, pointed nails. Okay. Casa Ventura became more entitled, less devoted to her career. When she began dating Shaun Combs, his former employee testified in cross-examination. Capricorn Clark, who held various positions for Combs' companies and Ventura's expectation levels, was increasing, as if her status had changed by dating Combs. Years after she was his employee, Combs hired Clark back to assist Ventura on his recording label. She got a little bit more bravado being his girlfriend the longer it lasted, Clark testified, adding that sometimes she thought I was being paid to help her. Part of Clark's answer was she struck from the record after prosecution objected. She went from being a sweet model to feisty girlfriend, Clark said. The defense argued that while Ventura was physically abused by Combs, she was not transported and took part in freak-offs voluntarily. Okay. They have said that she was heavily focused on being around Combs as much as possible, but was never forced to do anything. Ventura has been driven by chronic jealousy over the fact that Combs was never fully committed to her. His defense team have suggested. Clark's testimony could serve to suggest that Ventura carved the stature that came with being in a romantic relationship with Combs. All right, whoever it was, I have to add. I have to add
to that.
Please do.
So I don't know if you caught it.
People. Sorry, Stacey.
Oh, that's okay. Earlier in the testimony today, the one thing that came up was that Clark knew that Diddy was staying in hotels. It sounded like he was staying in hotels pretty much all week long. He would have Kim Porter in a hotel with him for a few days, and then he would have Cassie at a hotel room for a few days. So, it sounds like Kim Porter was also subjected to these freak-offs as well.
Chuck something in, and then you ladies can have the floor, because I'm going to go anyway. Couple of things I did note during that when they said that she shrunk back in her chair. That's normally an indication they're feeling dejected and they're feeling under attack. So she's moving backwards in her chair to create distance subconsciously. So she was probably being interrogated. But this is what we all saw coming, and this is what another thing that I said last week was, you know, they're going to start character assassinating her, and they're going to start ripping her to pieces, and this is just the beginning of it. I can see Cassie in for a really tough ride here, and it's what the defense are basically trained and paid to do. So we're just going to
absolutely
just strap in and get ready for a rough ride, I reckon. So yeah, that's all I've got on that. You ladies have the floor.
No problem.
So
okay.
love being here. Much love, peeps. I'm going to have to go. Tuck you bye.
They bother about. Take it easy,
Yeah,
Have a
brother.
good day, Uber.
Bye, guys.
Take it easy, brother.
Um,
All right, ladies, crack
please
on.
like and subscribe, everybody. Let's get the numbers up.
That's it. Good lad.
So Uber is right. You know, they already started character assassinating Cassie, and they're doing it while Clark is still on cross-examination. You know, they were asking her, like, you know, was Cassie a hard worker and yada yada? Was she talented? And Capricorn Clark was like, well, talented to me is Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. Cassie was not that. She was, you know, she needed the studio to equalize her sound and her tone. And basically,
Which is ironic. It's ironic because I've seen yesterday, I think it was, a video where Capricorn was saying how close she and Ventura were. So it's funny how they changed their stories. But the assassination is going to be, and as I said to you the other day, Stacey, I do think that unfortunately, although the FBI are going to be on the case of checking everyone, protecting everyone, especially those that they've got to testify, it is still going to be in the back of the minds, the reach of Diddy and what being part of this could lead to for them going forward. You know,
well, Capricorn, you know, spoke of as well today about how there was an incident, you know, when Diddy found out about Kid Cudi, they were back at Diddy's house and he was beating the crap out of Cassie. And there was a security guard there as well as Capricorn Clark. And Capricorn wanted to step in and defend her. And Diddy said, if you try to defend her, you're going to get the same thing too. You know, and eventually the security guard told Capricorn to leave. And as she was leaving, because Diddy had dragged her out, Diddy dragged Cassie outside and, you know, was like kicking her in the back and in the stomach and all this stuff.
I've seen that one.
As Capricorn was leaving, she called Cassie's mother and said, he's beating the shit out of your daughter. I can't call the cops. You need to do it. You know, because obviously that phone belonged to Diddy, so he would find out where the call came from, you know.
It was a phone, wasn't it?
No, Capricorn Clark's phone was a phone that Diddy
Cassie
paid
had
for.
one, didn't she? Yeah, no,
So,
sorry.
So the mother, you know, then said, I'll take care of it, and hung up. So, you know, it just goes to show we're hearing again another incident where the security guards have been witnessing, you know, whether it's immoral, violent, illegal activity, and they're not stepping in, they're allowing it to happen, and that's part of the RICO, you know,
and that's across the board. Everybody has stood by to the majority and let Diddy do all of these things to all of these people because they benefited at the time, or it was they feared repercussions on themselves. But it's got this far because there's been too many people turning a blind eye at everything all across the board, all along the way.
Yeah, Capricorn quit after that incident took place, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, and
was that the last time?
Well, that was the first time she quit.
Yeah, because
And
then she came back, didn't she?
yeah, and it was under the guise of she was going to be working directly with Cassie, not
Cassie.
with Diddy.
Mm,
So that was how he got her to agree to it.
yeah.
But yeah, in between all of that, one, she got a payoff. They tried,
Mm.
when she went to HR and, I wrote down the name. She went to, Harv Pierre, one of the chief executives of Bad Boy, and told them about the
President.
incident. He was like, "Oh, that's crazy, but don't worry, everything will be okay." And
Oh,
then
yeah.
next thing you know, she gets, a 30-day notice that she's being terminated, and she lost everything. She lost her house,
Yeah.
her car, everything. And so I'm sure Harv Pierre will get dragged onto the stand because, not only is it KK that has been brought up in regards to people directly working for Combs Enterprises or Bad Boy.
Well, he's the
Now we're
president,
hearing
isn't he?
Harv Pierre.
He's the president of Bad Boy Records.
There was somebody else that was president, but he's that person. I forget his name right now. He's definitely being brought in. But Harv Pierre, everyone's been suspecting that he'll be brought in because of the fact that he was there for so long, and they know that he knows stuff. So
I mean, basically, everybody knows.
yeah,
Everybody knows what's been going on. Everybody's just basically to them. It's just for example, the security guards and everybody around him. They're just doing their job, even though it's what he's doing is wrong. They're turning a blind eye to it, but to them, they're mostly thinking, well, this is just my job. I don't need, I do my job and that's it. I don't need to get involved in anything that Diddy's doing, which is illegal. And I mean, he spent his whole life, everything's just illegal, like you say. I just think he's just crazy because he's just such a control freak that he thinks that he's like some kind of mafia boss, that he's
he's
treating people like they're beneath him, and that he's just like literally clicking his fingers and they're having to do. I mean, they're not even questioning it. No one questions anything because as far as they're concerned, they just got a job to do. And like you say, they most probably have that fear as well.